here's the issue. I built my new shop, well, my new grinding area, with the hood around my belt, and it worked in my previous shop because it was a lot deeper and the dust had a place to go and hang around and then settle at the bottom. Here it's a little bit more shallow, a little more economy of space, but the problem was the dust was kicking around the wheel and blowing right back and just filling the shop, and it was hanging in here. So I had to think of something. A dust collection system came to mind, but then you run into issues with spark arresters and the storage of it, and the units are pretty expensive, and it's always a problem with somebody who grinds steel, the sparks and fire hazard. So an evacuation system was probably the best way that I could do it. Luckily, lots of renovations, I was able to take a blower from my furnace, giant blower. You could probably do the same thing with a smaller squirrel cage. I worked with what I had, and I retrofitted some duct work. You can see a fancy pail right there. That's covering the end of it, so that's the intake. And on the other side, I hammered a shield in to block that edge, to block that side, so that only the intake is bringing in the stuff here. My ductwork runs down to the top of my grinder hood, and this is just plywood lined with steel ductwork. I just cut and put it on the side, to keep the sparks from getting it. So it's drawing up. Now I did that, and the problem was, that's pretty powerful, and it's slamming the doors, and I could just feel my ears popping. So I had to find a way to equalize, which I thought I would just open my window, but what that did is brought in this huge cross breeze, and the shop went from 66 degrees down to what it was outside within a minute, and that was no good. So I had to find a way to get the air circulating back in. So if you come down here, what I wanted to do was have an intake. Originally I had it coming in the side of the hood, thinking that this goes to the outside, thinking that it would draw air through and just catch the dust with it and go. The problem with that is that it was pulling so much that this air inlet was coming out like a blower, and it was just blowing the dust back up. So I had to think of something else. As it stands right now, I just vented it close to where it's at. I find it doesn't cool the room down, and it must be pulling the air from in there, but I don't get the dust build up anymore, and it's pretty clean in here when I'm running. I would still wear a respirator, but there's no hanging dust like there was. My intention is to move this inlet underneath the grinder. There's a shield here I have that directs the chips into the pail. I'd like to put that underneath and maybe have a vent in the back so it runs up behind the belt, so it won't blow it back in my face. And we'll see how that works out. But for now, I'm really happy with what's happening, and I'm breathing easier. So you can feel there's a definite intake. And I have a one-way gate in here. The minute I turn it on, you can see that gate just open right up. I'm running my grinder. I don't get the dust. I don't get the dust buildup. Now, just for the purpose of this video, turned off the blower. I'll show you the difference. I'll do a little bit of grinding. You'll see where the dust is coming. I don't know if the camera's picking it up or not, but I can already smell it. It's just flowing around in there. Not good. Dust evacuation system. My wife had a brilliant idea, so you can actually see the dust. I'll use a piece of wood first with the exhaust on. No accumulation of dust. Whip it off.
Turn it on, turn it on.
Big difference. You can see the dust going in. I'm still seeing dust from the room going in. Works like a charm. And I'm hoping that it'll work even better once I figure out a better way to vent in the outside air.